Welcome to An Unexpected Superhero. Before we get started, here's a little on the lens I look at the world through. My background is in bringing disruptive technologies to a mainstream market. I've done this a few times, both as an investor and an entrepreneur. Here's what I know. The obstacle to mainstream adoption is very seldom the technology itself. It's almost always some market barrier or economic barrier. One very important disruptive technology today is renewable energy. So today, I'm using my understanding of technology adoption curves to see how renewables can become our mainstream power source by 2030. It's really important that we do this and do it fast. The IPCC tells us we've got 8 years to sort this out. That's 8 years to get the world's power coming predominantly from renewables. If we don't, we will have runaway climate change. Here's our energy mix today. While renewables are growing, however, so too is fossil fuels, by far the major source of our global energy consumption. Here it is item by item. Coal has finally peaked and is now decreasing. Well, that's good. Solar and wind is increasing, which appears good. However, if we have a look at their annual growth rate, this graph is alarming. Both solar and wind have slowing growth rates. Solar has, for example, slowed from 54% per year 10 years ago to just 22% per year immediately pre-COVID. This means they're not on a growth curve that can challenge the incumbents, fossil fuels. By 2030, all renewables combined are on track to supply just 24% of our global power needs. That's less than a quarter. Nowhere near enough to stop runaway climate change. So, if we're going to change the world, we have to do something additional. And to do this, we must understand something called the activation energy barrier. The activation energy barrier exists everywhere in nature and in commerce. In chemistry, it's what stops two chemicals reacting. In life, it stops us forming new habits. And in new technology adoption, it's what stops new technologies gaining mainstream adoption, even when they're better technologies. In other words, it's what's currently happening with both wind and solar. How do we overcome this energy barrier? Well, we need a catalyst. Sometimes this catalyst is a government mandate, but more often it comes in the form of a new type of customer. An example of this is Airbnb. The idea for Airbnb was not new. Many previous companies had tried online residential short-term rental accommodation and failed. Airbnb won because, founded at the perfect time, 2008, the GFC brought them a unique and new type of customer seeking low-cost, short-term urban accommodation. This new type of customer was the catalyst that let Airbnb overcome its activation energy barrier, where its predecessors had not. So now here's the good news. When it comes to our renewable energy sector, we do have such a catalyst. This catalyst is again a unique and new type of customer. And this customer has 3 critical unique features. They are: number 1, they are location agnostic. They don't mind where they sit. Number 2, they're time of day agnostic. They don't mind taking power at unpopular times. And number 3, they have an insatiable appetite for both existing and new energy production. 10 years ago, there was no such customer, but today they exist, they are growing, and critically, they lower the economic barrier that has prevented faster adoption of renewables. They are Bitcoin miners. Here's how they change the equation. In the future, a new wind farmer goes to get capital to build a new wind farm, for example. She teams up with a Bitcoin mining customer. The wind farmer shows the spreadsheet to their financial backer. The spreadsheet looks good because they have a steady customer buying all year round, including previously unpopular times of day. That means higher revenue and higher profit. But it also means it takes less time to pay off the capital investment for a new wind farm. And then they show the kicker, a signed contract from the Bitcoin miner before the new farm has even been built that says, "I will be your first customer." This gives guaranteed locked-in income for any new wind farms. Your financial backer says, well, you're 40% more revenue, you've got 60% more profit, you're paying off the build cost 3 months ahead of time, and you've reduced risk because you've got a buyer off the plans. I can approve a loan not for 1 new wind farm, but for 5. A portion of this new energy is used for the wind farmer's base Bitcoin mining customer, and the bulk goes back to the grid, which now has a load-balanced, brownout resilient, renewables-heavy composition. Now, we've still got to convert all our vehicles from fossil fuels onto that renewable energy grid. We've still got to decarbonize many of our major industries. We've still got to stop methane emissions from oil fields, livestock, and more going into the sky. However, this would be a major step forward for all humanity. And this is how Bitcoin mining is going to play its part in saving the planet. But the story gets better. It's not only existing renewable operators that can expand. Bitcoin mining lowers the barrier to entry for new operators so they can get in the game. In New Zealand, where I'm from, for example, we're in the roaring 40s. We have some of the best wind supply in the world. You'd never know it. Why? Well, because the big utilities are the only ones who have the customer base, and they are doing what big utilities do, which is to move at their own steady pace. Meanwhile, independent operators who are ready to come in don't have the customer base. They're technologists, not salespeople. Well, now they do have the customers. They have Bitcoin miners. Suddenly, their business case stacks up. When we add the Bitcoin mining customer to the renewable energy adoption curve, we can achieve an almost 20% year-on-year growth, both in new operators and in growing existing operators. Compounding these two together, the entire renewable sector can now expand at 43% year-on-year. Compounding that over 8 years, here's what our global energy consumption looks like by 2030. 70% of all global energy is renewable. That's right, 70%. It turns out that Bitcoin mining is our catalyst for mainstream renewable energy adoption. To put it another way, it's our unexpected superhero. This picture should give us hope. Now remember, this is not just electricity consumption. This is all global energy consumption. And now we have a valid, sustainable, practical path towards achieving it. I believe we will get there. However, it will take a shift in our thinking. It will require us to think more critically, debunk old myths more deeply, and believe more fully in a better future than we have dared to date. Please share this message so we can continue to spread hope, which is combined with sound critical thinking. It does make a difference, and so can you.